Mr. Harris, Moke's daughter, Mahana.
Mahana?
You mean the little shadow who comes in once in a while for a spool of thread?
That's the one. She has a face like a stone, and she looks as though she missed too many meals.
Mahana! Mahana! Where is that girl? She knows today's the bargaining day. Mahana! I'll beat her. She's as foolish as she is ugly.
Shh. You don't want to let Johnny Lingo hear you say that?
He has eyes, hasn't he?
But he must think he's getting a bargain.
He will get a bargain. He wants a woman to mend his roof, to fix his supper, and doesn't want to pay more than a three-legged cow for her. You do not know what it means to have a homely daughter, Mahai. I'm ready to give him a cow, just to have him take her off my hands. And I will count myself fortunate to be rid of her. She is no comfort hugging the corners of the hut, speaking only in whispers and never looking at me. This is what comes, Mahai, of buying a 2-cow wife. Look at you. You paid 4 cows for your wife.
5.
And she gave you beautiful daughters. Your investment has been doubled.
I see her.
Mahana, you ugly. What are you hiding up there for? Today is a day of bargaining. Come down and be ready to greet your husband-to-be. Mahana, you ugly.
The Lord wants all his children to partake of the eternal blessings available in his temple. He has directed what each person must do to qualify to enter his holy house. All requirements to enter the temple relate to personal holiness. To assess that readiness, each person who wants to enjoy the blessings of the temple will have 2 interviews. First, with a bishop, bishopric counselor, or branch president. Second, with a stake or mission president or one of his counselors. In those interviews, several questions will be asked. Some of those questions have recently been edited for clarity. I would like to review them for you now. Are you a full tithe payer?
We are instructed to give unto you the law of chastity, which is that the women of God's kingdom and the men of God's kingdom shall have no sexual relations except with those to whom they are legally and lawfully wedded according to his law. Each of you bring your right arm to the square. You and each of you individually covenant and promise before God, angels, and these witnesses that you will observe and keep the law of chastity as it has been explained to you. Each of you bow your head and say yes.
Yes.
Thank you.
The mandate given by the First Presidency and the presiding bishopric is to only focus on financial growth. EPA employees are told that the money will be used after the second coming of Jesus Christ or during Armageddon right before he would come again.
One of our brethren some years ago spoke of the payment of tithing as fire insurance. Nonetheless, the word of the Lord is clear that those who do not keep the commandments and observe the laws of God shall be burned at the time of his coming.
Mahana, you ugly.
Travis Wingwood's on. Looking over my lifetime stats on this channel on YouTube, my #1 video still to date, by far, 39,730 or 50? 30 views. LDS dates for the return to Independence, Missouri. It's very clear that YouTube is suppressing my channel. That was put out July 18th, 2017. And it's not until 2 years later when it got its views. And then you'll notice a big old flat line until I'm locked up in Gail Miller's concentration camp of human trafficking for 9 months. And breaking free is when I get my biggest views since that 2019 breakout. As you can see, that there was a concerted effort to silence me after that. And likewise, after I get my initial conference breakout, there is a tanking back down again. And then you see for the 2023, well, actually, no, that would be October of last year. There was some rising, and you'll notice right there at the very end of it, it's tanking again. And so, yeah, this push to get the information out for you is under attack. And it's sad, literally. As for some reason last evening, I was allowed to go back up to normal viewing. Yeah, normal viewing. For just a few hours. It's below average viewing normally lately. So, Mormons are told not to read the scriptures. I've heard numerous Mormons since 1993 talk about how they don't want to study the scriptures because they don't want to become apostates. They just want to focus on the basics and not go into deep doctrine through study. And so, here's one of the deep doctrines. Run, Mormons, run! Yea, I make a record in the language of my father, which consists of the learning of the Jews and the language of the Egyptians. Every Mormon knows that. I did not need to reference 1 Nephi chapter 1, verse 2 at the very beginning of the Book of Mormon. It means that Joseph Smith and the Book of Mormon are Jewish. And the Book of Mormon goes on to teach you the particular Jewishness that it is, so that you would be corrected from your blindness of Christianity. And yet, the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints has successfully blinded you from the truth and reality that is the founding that this church claims they are. This is a religious hate crime that's been perpetuated on every single one of us from birth. Each generation of Mormon from Brigham Young have been indoctrinated in the lie. Every single Mormon attacks the agency of anyone who points out the facts of this church. This is what hate crimes do. The organization that is indoctrinating you into hate weaponizes you to attack whenever threatened. You are not supposed to be Christian, Mormons. You become an enemy of mankind by denying the Book of Mormon that you claim is your keystone. You're trying to tell me that I have to deny literacy? I have to deny the truth of linguistic science. I have to deny the history of the founding of Joseph Smith's religion? Or you're going to do what to me? Bleep you. Bleep this camera. Dear God. I just want to do a video in peace. And I'm not allowed to. YouTube won't let me. YouTube is committing a religious hate crime against me. The church has been committing hate crimes against me, not just you. And so, as even Exfo Nevermos also get the information wrong, because they did not put the pieces of the puzzle together. They just believe whatever they're told to believe, and instead of being faith promoting, they embrace doubt promotion. You knew faith promotion was wrong, and yet, it's like the teenage investigator back on my mission in Newburgh, New York. We had given her mother a Book of Mormon to read it. We'd come back the next week, and we see her with her little girlfriends. And Mark Augustine did not heed my counsel to leave her alone. And went up to her, as were two white guys in suits, and going up to a group of black girls and talking to one of them, and all her friends are like, what are these two white boys talking to you about? What are you doing? And Mark is asking her if she's read the Book of Mormon. She says yes. And he asked, did you pray about it to find out if it was true or not? She said yes. And what was your answer? It's not true. And so Mark was humiliated by a group of teenage girls. You gotta listen to me. Nobody ever listens to me. And so as Alyssa Grenfell is the latest new hit ex-faux never, or anti-Mormon, anti-Christ core whore on YouTube. She, a few days ago, finally made the rookie mistake of going into Joseph Smith history, believing the lies about him. And so again, if the Book of Mormon says it's in the learning of the Jews, which means it's the Jewish religion, then all these people that are claiming that Joseph Smith committed all these different things, are you using Judaism or Christianity as your backdrop? Because in 1838, this is where you begin to get all of the claims that Joseph Smith is still being accused of to this day. To be accused of being a sexual deviant, child predator, rapist, stealing other men's wives. This originated in 1838. It wasn't 1843, it was 1838. Oliver Cowdery was upset that Joseph Smith was taking the church in a direction that he didn't want it to go into, and so he left. And then said, and I'm upset with the inappropriate nature of your housemaid with you. Did you watch him have sex? Why are you throwing it out if you didn't witness it? Nonetheless, the Danites pounced on it. Like, yes. So they then were practicing it in secret from that moment on. Heber C. Kimball was already practicing it, by the way. Brigham Young, likewise, on their missions. It was pretty much rape. They would go to bring in their Danite brotherhood, and while they were away at work, they'd rape their wives, and then they'd be converted into the church to attack Joseph Smith, having to keep it all a sacred secret. Because back in those days, they hadn't forgotten about the Salem witch trials. The man would simply say, your wife is a witch. She'd be guilty. Not to mention that she was infidelity, a whore, and thus the husband would be able to kick her to the curb and she would be ruined because the women's rights, the suffrage movement had not begun yet. And so women were in perilous conditions back in those days, and the church wants to make America great again, just like those days. Joseph Smith was also accused in 1838 of being a murderer. Joseph Smith was threatening Mormons, join my hinge-pointing religion or die. Benjamin Franklin Johnson. No, not what you think it is. It was the Danites who were doing these threats. Joseph Smith was claimed to be a terrorist. Thomas B. Marsh, in his affidavit that caused the extermination order, said that he was told that Joseph Smith was seeking to overthrow the government of the United States and intended to do it to the whole world. Huh. Amazing. Joseph Smith was also accused of being a Christian. No longer a Jew. Thus his 1838 history, trying to set the record straight that he's Jewish, not Christian, that Christianity is an abomination. And yet, who put the name of the church as Jesus? So yes, Joseph Smith was also accused of changing the name of the church. Oliver Cowdery, in his book, Defense, horrified from the word of David Whitmer, who was one of those who was chased out of the church with the threat of murder by the Danites, claiming it was Joseph who was wanting to do it. And so Joseph Smith was also accused of being a criminal. All there in 1838, guys. That Joseph Smith is a thief and a robber and a criminal. 1838. All Danites. And, of course, worshipper of Lucifer with the inverted pentagram. Even the church purposely confuses you on this issue. claiming that Joseph Smith designed the outside of the Nauvoo temple. It's amazing how many people are easily fooled. Why would they lie to us? It's real simple. Church claims that the Book of Mormon and Joseph Smith are Christian. And so because it's obvious it's not, everything this church claims cannot be believed. You cannot produce truth from the seed of falsehood. The seed of falsehood is claiming Joseph Smith and the Book of Mormon are Christian. And so anything that sprouts from it is a lie. Real simple. I don't need to go into hours of discussion on this. Mormons are in bondage to this church. It's not just me who's been threatened to deny the truth. Avraham Gileadi was threatened. He denies the truth now. Other Mormons have been threatened to deny the truth, and they denied the truth. Mormons who leave the church for whatever the reason are threatened by their fellow Mormons, their family, their so-called friends, to come back and deny the truth. This church is a terrorist organization. This church is a hate organization. This church is criminal. This church is in the process right now of overthrowing our government. It is not religious freedom to be a religious hate group. You do not have that freedom. The whole First Amendment is not about taking away the rights of others. That is not what freedom is. And every Mormon knows that when you take away the freedom and liberty and rights of another, that is Lucifer's plan. And so yes, Lucifer reigns supreme in this church and in our nation. As people are raging, you must allow the Islamic terrorist hate group to violently overthrow this government and force them to do our will. No, you're terrorists. You don't need to be rounded up, and capital punishment is the crime, or the punishment for the crime. Those in Congress are supposed to have been removed. Not just for January 6th. They're still there. Mitt Romney was caught. He's still there. He rigged his 2022 election. Mitt Romney, not understanding that he's paying the church for his wife to be a prostitute, which I'm sure has been well over $130,000, Mitt Romney. And yet, this morning I saw the news where he's saying you don't pay someone $130,000 not to have sex with you. You're not paying the church not to have sex. Or are we if we're single? When are you going to wake up, Mormons? When are you going to make the choice? Because you've already chosen by not choosing. By staying in the church, by being silent, by avoiding the videos that are uncomfortable for you, refusing to believe, sending me hate comments, death threats, and testimonials, trying to force me to deny the truth that is blatantly obvious in the text. Refusing to read the Joseph Smith papers to learn the truth. It's on you, Mormons. You are accountable for your own actions. If you choose to be a puppet for the church as an evil, anti-Semitic hater, it's on you. You and you alone are responsible for your agency. You can't blame the church when you learn the truth. You must have the courage, the honor, and integrity to choose the right, not corrupt the righteous.